Things are not looking good for car dealerships. With legacy automakers cutting off retailers and consumers losing interest in buying cars, it's a dying industry. So much so that a few dealerships have already had to file for bankruptcy. Just how do we end up here? And is there a way out? Keep watching to find out. The current car dealership situation is anything but shocking. The industry was able to handle itself during the whole pandemic. In fact, some might say the car dealerships saw some of their best years during the pandemic. Back then, the average price of a non-luxury vehicle was around $54,578, which was the highest the industry has ever seen. This was a $1,000 increase from car prices in previous months. However, car dealerships have been struggling to find their footing in a post-pandemic era. The year started off with the average car hitting around $46,437, signifying a 4.2% year-over-year increase. At the same time, loan rates have reached an all-time high. With these two factors added, there will be a downward trend of consumers buying cars. Reports from the automobile website Edmunds had only confirmed every car dealership's worst nightmare. According to the website's analysts, average monthly payments on a new car amount to $1,000, and so customers have been forced to stretch out their loans in order to pay them. Customers aren't better off buying used cars either, as the monthly cost of financing a used car has also risen in recent months. It's increased by a shocking $147, making the current cost $556 per month. These circumstances have led to one thing and one thing only: car dealerships closing. American Car Center, one of the leading car dealerships, sent ripples to the industry as it filed for bankruptcy earlier in 2023. As a result, ACC had to shut down 50 dealerships across 10 states. The move left over 45,000 customers hanging in the Southeast. According to reports, the company went out of business in late February and filed for Chapter 7 liquidation. For those of you who don't know, Chapter 7 acts for liquidation as opposed to recognition. Keystone Ford is in similar waters as the company prepares to shut doors after 39 years. Back when circumstances were better, Keystone sold more than 3,000 new and used cars every year. But the dealership's glory days are long behind it. In the past 3 years, sales have been falling by about 2/3. Earlier in November 2020, used car retailer Carvana was in similar waters. The dealership reported a net loss of $1.5 billion in the first 9 months of 2022, which was previously $105 million in 2021. To make matters worse, Carvana's cash on hand was $316 million in September of 2022. That's a 22% reduction compared to the start of the year. The question is, how did we car dealerships reach this situation in the first place? The blame lies with Ford Motor, General Motors, and other automakers who have been focusing on making fewer vehicles and cutting off dealerships. Ford has reduced its retailers by 139 to fewer than 4,140, while General Motors has shrunk its dealers by 229 to 6,807 in 2022. Chrysler seems to be joining the two, as it already reduced its dealers by 132, going to 3,607. Ford spokesman Jim Kane tried to explain this worrying trend by saying that their strategy have to deal with dealerships on every corner in order to drive the market share is a thing of the past. The business model is different now, and so automakers must take a different approach. However, Kane did acknowledge that this isn't an easy thing to do. But legacy automakers are not the only one that needs to shoulder the blame. Jonathan Smoke, a chief economics at Cox Automotives, expanded on the issue during a podcast with the car dealership guy. He pointed out the real problem is narrowing buying pool. With the current interest rates and soaring inflation, only a few people can afford to buy cars, and car dealerships are taking the brunt of it. It's important to point out that dealerships don't own the cars in their shops. Instead, they take out loans from banks to secure the cars and then pay back the loan on a monthly basis. However, things are different in the middle of a global recession. Banks are much more reluctant to hand out loans, and people are not interested in buying cars. Citizens Bank is one of the banks that has significantly downsized its loan portfolio to car dealerships. The bank expects to take its auto loan portfolio from a shocking $14.5 billion only to a laughable $5 to $6 billion by the end of 2024. Unfortunately, Citizens Bank isn't the only one of banks that has been closing its doors to car dealerships. There has been a general trend of turning away dealer shops in the industry for quite a while now, which has only worsened through the ongoing crisis. With no loans, dealerships have no way to secure cars to sell. The few car dealers that are able to secure bank loans struggle with paying back their loans given the high interest rates. Add in the dwindling customer interest, and suddenly it starts making a lot of sense as to why car dealerships are shutting down. To make matters worse, up-and-coming startups are planning to take retailers completely out of the equation. By cutting off car dealerships, EV startups like Rivian and Lucid plan to take their business directly to the customers. Lucid CEO Peter Walrenson tried to explain the move by saying that the consumer experience and the consumer journey are too precious to delegate to a third party. Of course, there are other added benefits as well, like providing a better buying experience and reducing overhead costs. However, before car dealership owners start worrying, they should know that the move does not come without its problems. First of all, companies will have to address the problem of how most state rules make it necessary for cars to be sold through dealerships. And so, before the auto manufacturers take their business private, they will need to make their case before state laws. It will certainly be a long and excruciating process. What's more, EV makers need to keep in mind that they can't simply cut off dealerships and expect to see the same success with direct-to-consumer sales. These retailers make use of already established networks, while EV makers will have to rely heavily on advertising. That said, it will make it a lot harder for them to make money. It will also add more to the EV makers' plate. Car manufacturers will not only be responsible for producing vehicles, but also getting vehicles to their customers after they're produced, and so it will all come down to how efficiently companies are able to deliver their cars. During its second quarter earnings in July 2022, Rivian CFO Claire McDough explained that the startup started moving from truck to rail for vehicle deliveries to save up on production costs. Of course, the move came with its issues. While the startup was hitting production targets and cutting down on manufacturing costs, it was not clocking revenue. When there are car dealerships in the equation, automakers book revenue as soon as the car leaves the plant, but that's not the case anymore. In the new model, automakers will not only clock in revenue once the cars reaches the customers' driveways, and obviously the job will be much harder for a company that's focusing on sourcing parts and manufacturing cars on top of delivering cars to customers' doorsteps. Compared to startups, there's no denying that franchise dealerships are fully capable of doing the better job, so it's very likely that EV makers will struggle to achieve the same efficiency with their delivery system. Consumers might be getting impatient and go for faster options, but this would be an ideal opportunity for dealers' lots to prove their worth. Speaking of Ford, legacy automakers are taking a different approach, a hybrid one. Car shoppers are being asked to place their order at the factory and then pick it up at the dealership. Caldwell said that this strategic legacy car companies have a competitive advantage. The automakers are changing things, but it's nothing radical like the startup, and so it works to their advantage. At the same time, interested consumers could also know that now is the best time to buy cars. With all the challenge car dealerships are facing, they are bound to offer cars at affordable prices. Dealer shops need to make the most of their inventory, so anyone willing to pay cash in the next 60 to 90 days should be making the most of this golden opportunity. What the situation will look over after the 60 to 90 days remains unknown, but from the current situation and look at things, car dealerships should prepare for the worst. That's all for today. Until next time.